name is Anjola. I'm currently living in York and I'm a sixth form student and I'm 17 years old. I am currently studying biology, chemistry and geography. My family, we are Nigerian and I have two older siblings. I've grown up in a Christian family and I went to church every Sunday. Well, my experience at church really started when I was at Catholic school. When I was in primary school, I went to Catholic school and they have a Sunday school there, and we did things like drawing and singing songs and simple things like that. And then we switched church probably when I was in year 4, maybe 5, and we went to Hope Centre Church, and it was a very different atmosphere there as it was more lively, louder. That doesn't mean to say that I didn't like Catholic church, because it has a very serious and very important atmosphere to it. But changing church really led me to see different sides of church that I think really helps me in my everyday and current life now. One of the most important things I have received out of church, I think, is song. And it might sound strange to many people, but singing and music is very important to me because these songs are crafted through while you sing the gospel. So in a way you receive the gospel in a way that you don't really realize or consciously realize. But when I'm singing a song in church, I think it's when I actually stop and think and listen to these songs that I've been singing for years maybe, and think, what's actually the meaning behind this song? Similarly, listening to people's testimonies and people's stories about how God or Jesus or the Holy Spirit, all three, have impacted their lives has been very important to me as somebody growing up, because you're not really sure of many things as you're growing up, but to hear many people's stories and how maybe at the beginning of their journey they were very unsure until where they are now, and how I know them now as being very strong, very stable in their Christian faith and in their general lives. It gives me hope that there's a way that I'll be able to get there, even if necessarily now I don't have this big trial or tribulation that I need to get through. It's always just very hopeful and very good that people can share their experiences with me. Well, my experience of being a Christian at school is maybe some might say easy, because I go to a Catholic school, so there's a general idea of faith and God existing. For example, we do prayers in the morning. Before we take any big exams, we do a prayer, many of these things. But for many people, they don't really see it as an actual thing to believe in. It's just a sort of ritual, just something to do at the beginning of whatever we have to do, or something that they have to really bear with, which for me, I think when I was in year 7, so when I started secondary school, I always felt the need to have to defend myself and my beliefs as if everybody was always attacking me. But as I matured and got older, I think I realized that it's weird to say, but many people come from many different backgrounds and have very many different experiences to me. And just because I argue with them for 5 minutes about whether God or Jesus exists, it's not really going to impact their lives in a way that's useful or productive. More actually gaining a proper connection with them and learning about them as a person is a more important way to share your faith. And even nowadays, it's not really about me sharing my faith, it's more about the actions that I take. Because even if I see people at my school or at other people from school, not at school events, just doing things that I don't think are correct or I don't think are right, it's more for me with the people I am with to comment on, just to stay true to myself and say that I don't really think that's right. But at the end of the day, I can't change somebody's actions or influence them directly if I don't have an actual true connection with them. So for me, being a Christian at school, it hasn't really been that difficult on a general sense, because there is the concept that Jesus or God exists, which doesn't happen in many places. But the general personal connection that I feel with God and Jesus as a whole, it's not there with a lot of people. But to explain and articulate it to them is, I guess, can be a challenge, because a lot of people aren't willing to listen to what you actually have to say. Well, my relationship with praying and reading the Bible, I'm going to start with reading the Bible, because it's one of those things that for many teenagers I think is very hard for them, because it feels like the Bible is so disconnected from our everyday lives, but when we actually read into it, I don't really think it is. It's more just the understanding of the things that have happened in the past and how we can relate them to our everyday lives. In a way, it's kind of a form of education. Like, we go to school, we learn about biology, physics, chemistry, and we have to hear all these things and we have to figure out how we're going to apply them to a different problem. I think that reading the Bible is the same. We read all these things and we read all these stories about people and what their experiences were, and we think, how can we apply this to our lives? And it also goes hand in hand with praying, because when you read the Bible, really you should pray as well, that like you'll be able to fully apply this and understand it to your everyday life. Now, moving on, my relationship with prayer, I think I'm better, maybe more adept with prayer, because it's something I actually remember to do more often than reading the Bible, because sometimes when I'm going to bed at night, it's easier to just pray than it is to get out my Bible and read. So for me, prayer is something that I've implemented, or I've tried to implement at least, into my everyday routine, like just before I go to bed, where I think about everything that's happened in the day and how good or how bad I perceive it to be, and just pray that the next day will be better, or I'll get better understanding, or that I'll just continue to live my very happy life pretty much. You know, there isn't that much that troubles me in my everyday life, so it's more saying thank you and praying for people who are less fortunate than me, or who maybe haven't come yet to know Jesus or the Bible or anything like that. My experience with prayer is one that's very simple, I think. Often when I pray, I think it's almost like throwing a stone into the ocean. You think that your problem is so small and insignificant that the ocean won't really care whether there's a stone in there or whether there's not one. But to actually contradict my own metaphor, God isn't the ocean. He's way bigger than that. So when you throw a stone into the ocean, which is God in this case, knows it's there. And whether you remember it or whether you remember that you haven't thrown the stone, he still responds to the act of throwing the stone. Many things I pray for, I often forget about, but when the prayer comes true, or even if it doesn't come true, I'll remember randomly and I'll be like, I prayed for that. Well, that was great. And I'll thank God for whatever I prayed for, because a lot of things in my life aren't particularly difficult. They're more just like small, maybe like inconveniences, things like that. But even like small inconveniences for like some people, and including me, can like ruin your entire day. So for something small to be solved, or for you to finally find an answer, genuinely feels rewarding, and it feels like somebody is looking after you and looking out for you, even in like this world where I haven't experienced a lot of like maybe let's say evils of the world, but even in this world where sometimes it can feel a bit like hopeless or just a bit melancholic maybe, just having these small little victories and wins for me just really help like push my day on and keep going. Well, in terms of where my faith journey is going, I think nobody is completely sure or complete of where their faith journey is going, or where they want to go, or where they'll end up. But all I do hope and pray for is that I'll be in a very different state to where I am now, for the better, because there are still lots of things that I don't know and I don't understand, being young and everything. But that doesn't mean I can't have an influence on people's lives. I've already met so many young Christians that have fully and properly influenced my life and the way I think about God and Jesus. And I think that those people were put in my life for specific reasons. And I want to be one of those people who are put in somebody else's life to help them for a specific reason. And that has been my real life story.